Thank you. Any other members wish to comment? And I see Mr. McCarty has joined us. Thank you, Mr. Superintendent. It's been informative, and we appreciate your commitment to our children.
Great. Thank you.
With that, our second speaker is Lisa Silverman. She's Executive Officer of the Office of Public School Construction. Is Bill Savage speaking with her? Both. And we'll also have Bill Savage, Assistant Executive Officer of the State Allocation Board.
Good afternoon, committee members and Chair. I'm Lisa Silverman. I'm the Executive Officer of the Office of Public School Construction. So on behalf of the Department of General Services, we administer the General Obligation Bond Program for the state of California and also serve as staff to the State Allocation Board. So since the voters have been generous to fund and approve $35 billion in voter-approved initiatives, this program has actually dispersed over $33 billion in program funds to districts on behalf of the General Obligation Bond Program. And so with those funds, over 51,000 classrooms have been, new classrooms have been built. That represents clearly close to $18 billion, and over $11.3 billion in modernization funds have been awarded to districts as well, which represents 134,000 classrooms that have been modernized. So the program itself is a matching program, and the state does partner up with local agencies. But there's a lot of flexibility with the program. It's based on a first-come, first-served basis, and there's lots of flexibility in how the LEAs could use their funds. Since the voters approved the various bond initiatives, there's actually 11 programs that have various programs. The primary program has been new construction and modernization, but again, it has grown and has, 11 different programs that we have administered. And so, again, the primary program is new construction, and it's basically based on future needs and the future needs on classroom capacities. And it also would encumber also existing sites, so additions, purchases of sites as well. It is based on a per-pupil grant, and there's also various supplemental grants that also will be add-on grants to the program, to their projects as well. It's based on classroom projections, a 5-year classroom projection, and based on the future enrollment and the existing inventory that the school has. There's also opportunities for districts to move off the 5-year projection and also go off a 10-year projection as well. The loading standards for K-6 is 25 students. The loading standards for 7 through 8 is 27. Likewise, 9-12 is 27 students. Non-severe students is 13. Severe special day students are 9. So the modernization program is the next program that had close to over $11 billion that was allocated to the funds. And with that, as the superintendent mentioned, that the current program is a 60-40 match, so the state does participate 60% as a matching partner with locals. And with that, it's very site-specific, provides a lot of flexibility. The eligibility requirements is for permanent facilities, it has to meet the threshold of 25 years or older. And for portable facilities, it has to meet the minimum threshold of 20 years or older in order to qualify for the program funds. And with that, I also wanted to touch base on the facility hardship program. Although it doesn't really have a subset of funds available, but it does have a component where, based on a health and safety threat, we are actually providing an obligation or a grant to districts outside of the normal program, and the eligibility requirement. The only eligibility requirement we have here, it must mitigate the health and safety issue. So depending on the type of program or request the LEAs are seeking, they have the ability to submit a cost estimate, and it may require that it be funded out of new construction or modernization. Again, the priority is to address the health and safety needs. The next program I wanted to touch base on is the seismic mitigation program. It's up to $199.5 million provided in Proposition 1D. Again, the basis of this program was to address the most vulnerable California school facilities that may have a risk to children. And again, the Category 2 buildings, and again, had to be the eligibility component. And as far as the program funds, we have currently processed over $46 million in applications, and currently we have over $46 million in conceptual approvals. So that's the ability for districts to come in and seek the board approval based on their project and see whether or not they meet the minimum components of the program. And so even though they're not awarded bond authority, they do have the ability to have some kind of assurances from the board, the allocation board, that they do meet the program requirements. So they have an opportunity to come back in after 12 months to seek state funding. And currently, we actually have several projects in-house that we are processing for funding in the seismic program. So we continue to, again, provide outreach to those folks out in the district and seeking those folks to be successful in the program. So, again, we still have $142 million in program funds. The next program I wanted to touch base is the Charter School Facilities Program. There was over $900 million provided through the various initiatives, and it covers based on a statutory distribution of those funds based on geographical location, urban, rural requirements, and large, medium, and small charter schools. There's also a loan component to that program as well, so that if the charters don't have the ability to match, they also could seek the state to partner up for a loan, and that loan could be up to 30 years. We have processed over $414 million in charter school funding, and actually there's over $420 million that are currently outstanding. So for the charter program, they may have a preliminary award. They have the ability to convert the project. They may take up to 4 years to convert the project. So we actually have $420 million in commitments, and so we are actively, managing those timelines. So they have, again, those certain timelines come in to seek those, convert those projects and access the state program. There is a component of the charter program in which they have to get financial soundness from the California School Finance Authority, and again, that is with the Treasurer's Office. So again, we work in conjunction with the Treasurer's Office as we have an open filing round. The next program, there's two programs that are somewhat related. One of them is a critically overcrowded school program, and there was over $4.14 billion that was allocated through Proposition 47 and 1D. The core component was basically to address the overcrowding in the district. So with that, that program was exhausted. So we basically tapped out all the funds there. And in the overcrowded relief program, there was over $1 billion allocated in Proposition 1D, and all those funds have been committed. And so we currently, the program has replaced over 1,700 portable projects, and currently have allocated over $850 million in program funds. And so we still have a number of projects that are currently on our unfunded list. The eighth program I want to touch base is Career Tech Education. I know the superintendent mentioned this program. We had the ability to work with joint power agencies, again, to promote the Career Tech Education program. There was funding also for facilities. There was funding specifically also for just equipment only. That was $500 million in program funds, and all those funds have been currently exhausted. Thank you. The last two programs that I want to mention is the Energy Efficiency Program. That was actually through Proposition 47 and 55. There was over $40 million that was awarded in those program funds. And we actually processed 146 grants for $33.2 million. Since the program did not exhaust those funds to the applicants, the rest of the remaining funds were actually allocated to the new construction and modernization programs. There was a joint use program. There was actually over $179.4 million allocated, even though the goal of the joint use program was that the local agencies would partner with governmental agencies, higher education providers, or nonprofits. And again, it was a successful program, so we currently have no existing bond authority. The last program I want to touch base is the High Performance Incentive Grant Program, which was the program was through Proposition 1D. There was $100 million that was currently allocated for that program. It wasn't a standalone program. It had to be part of a component of a new construction and modernization project. And so it also expanded to the critically overcrowded schools, charter schools, facility hardship projects, and seismic projects that were also eligible. And so the purpose of that program was to promote energy and water efficiency, maximize the use of natural lighting, improve indoor air quality, and actually DSA scored those projects when they came in for funding. So we actually did process nearly $64.2 million in program applications, and as a result of the budget enactment for the 14-15 budget year, the remaining program funds will actually will be reallocated to the new construction and modernization program. So that will actually happen as a result of the enactment of the budget. A couple things I wanted just to highlight. Again, we have the program funds that I mentioned. We have over $142 million still left in the seismic program. We actually will allocate the remaining program funds in new construction and modernization out to other projects this month. But I wanted to touch base with you with what we currently have as what we commonly refer to as the three lists we have. We have what we call an unfunded list, which is lack of AB 55 loans, and that came about as a result of the fiscal crisis in 2008. And we had the ability to seek loans from the Pool Money Investment Board. And so since the fiscal crisis hit us, we had no ability to fund those projects. So even though the component of the grant did meet the requirements and the board did provide them an allocation, we had to wait in order to give them access to the cash. The treasurer had to go out and sell the bond commitment. So we currently have projects in our system that, yes, although we do have projects on the unfunded list and we have to wait for the treasurers to go out and sell the general obligations, it's a current system that we do have. And we have what we call a priority system process. So we are encouraging districts to come in to meet the program requirements and have access to the cash. So the certifications they have to provide us twice a year once they have an unfunded approval. And it's important for districts. They have two opportunities to come in to actually access the cash. And if they don't access the cash within those opportunities, then they actually will lose their program award. We currently have $229 million in projects on the unfunded list, so we are waiting for the treasurer to go out and sell a general obligation bond. And those folks who have an unfunded approval and submitted a certification are eligible to access the cash once we have the cash available. The next list I wanted to touch base is the true unfunded list. So we actually, back in 2012, there was the ability for the program to continue to process applications even though we didn't have bond authority. The State Allocation Board adopted regulations to change that rule. So as of any project that came in under the new construction and modernization program, we acknowledged that we didn't have bond authority, but we had to set a mechanism or change the regulations so we couldn't no longer process those applications. So we actually had over $264 million and $232 million, respectively, in the new construction and modernization program that we actually had processed the applications. Although we processed the applications, there's no true commitment to these projects that we actually will have bond authority available in the future. So as we have projects that don't meet the obligations or they can't convert, then there's opportunities for those projects on that true unfunded list to have the ability to access some of the cash. But at this point in time, there's no promise or commitment to these projects that have processed, and we can't commit to them for any future bond authority. I wanted to highlight our last list is what we call an acknowledged list. So when the board adopted the regulations and the regulations went into effect, any applications that came through the door after November 1st, we couldn't no longer process them. So those applications, the board adopted those part of their acknowledged list, and so we are still keeping accumulation tabs and update on our website on a regular basis. So we have over $900 million currently on the acknowledged list. So with that, I just wanted to share with you. And again, there's no commitments to processing those applications. And districts also have to provide a certification that their local school board, acknowledge that there won't be a future commitment at this point in time.
Thank you, Ms. Silverman. If you could please stay here, we may have a few questions. And Mr. Bill Savage is now going to talk on our program.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair and members of the committee. I'm Bill Savage. I'm the Assistant Executive Officer for the State Allocation Board. And I'd like to provide the committee with a brief report on current school facilities funding need in California. And the material that I'm presenting with its methodology and projections is similar to what we presented for the State Allocation Board in December of 2013. And the material has been updated with new projections. I'm going to be speaking from this document, which you should have a copy of at your desks. And if you don't, I have some more here, so I can pass them around. Good. I want to look first at the context, and previous speakers have touched on the context. I want to do that quickly. Look at projected student enrollment based on new construction need, modernization need based on the potential value of eligibility on file with OPSC, and finally the pipeline need represented by projects submitted to OPSC beyond current bond authority. So in California, on page 3, the context of where we are now is that our state and local school facilities funding partnership has helped us to keep up with the need for new capacity in the face of surging student enrollment in the last 2 decades. But we face a future now of slower growth, of enrollment growth, coupled with the reality of our aging inventory of existing school buildings. And if you go to slide number 4, I think this chart shows California student enrollment from 1948 projected out to 2022 and 23. And what you can see by the slope of the curve of where we've been is the huge task that we've accomplished in funding new construction in California. But as you can see on the right-hand side of the chart, we're in a very flat period of anticipated slower growth in enrollment. So I want to turn now to the next page, and I used an inventory piece from the Los Angeles Unified School District just to provide an example of the challenges that we face as a state related to our existing school buildings. And the staggering total, 73 million square feet of space. The average age of the facility is 52 years, similar to what Mr. O'Donnell was stating related to his district. Modernization is a critical need for the state of California. Secondly, we have over 75,000 portable buildings in California, and they are deteriorating rapidly. Many of them were not well built to begin with, and they have not been well maintained, and they take up valuable playground space on our schools. And this is a huge need that we need to be aware of. Finally, I did want to make sure that you understand that part of the issue for the state in determining what our modernization need is that we lack any kind of state inventory of school facilities, and we don't have any data related to facilities condition at the state level in order to help us guide our policy initiatives. If you'll turn to slide number 6, I want to take you through very briefly new construction funding need in California. Student enrollment based upon the Department of Finance's Demographic Research Unit 2014 data is anticipated to decline over the next decade, that is from 2013-14 to 2023-24, by 23,569 students. However, this decline masks the fact that we have significant growth areas throughout the state still. Part of the decline is due to, for example, LA County is projected to decline by over 100,000 students. That masks, if you look on the right-hand side of the page, you can see the top 7 counties in California for anticipated growth from the finance projections: Riverside, San Diego, Kern, San Bernardino, Sacramento, Fresno, San Joaquin, areas where we know we have growth and we need to house those students. So the methodology for projecting our new construction funding need, if you go to the next page, is to assume that those 150,000 students need to be housed, and using data on the cost to house students that we have taken from our current program, we can then project that the potential total new construction need would be just over $7 billion, and if we assumed a state 50-50 matching share, the state share would be $3.54 billion. That would give an estimated yearly need, if you just do a simple average, of $354 million a year, which compares to the average expenditure, the average approvals by the State Allocation Board over the last 15 years of $1.2 billion a year for new construction. So you can see it's a lower need for new construction, but still a significant need statewide over the next decade. On the next page, which is slide number 8, I'd like to take you through the modernization funding need for the state. And in order to do this, what I'm using here is calculating the potential value of the remaining modernization eligibility that's on file with the Office of Public School Construction. So this is pupils that are in 25-year-old permanent buildings or 20-year-old portables, and we multiply those pupils by the average state apportionment, which includes the modernization base grant and an average of 26% above the grant for supplemental grants for all the projects in our current program. And if you go to the next page, the calculations shown on the next page provide the number of students, the base grant, the average per pupil apportionment, and then the total modernization funding need. And this $4.4 billion is the state's share. In my opinion, this is an extremely conservative number. And I think you'll hear some other numbers later. But if you look at the Los Angeles Unified School District, again, their facilities condition assessment, which they're in the process of completing, shows that they have a $40 billion need for modernization. And so it's clear that we're not able to get our hands around the true statewide need, but this is one way for us to look at a near-term need for modernization funding in the state of California. On page 10, I want to look at the projects, what we call in the pipeline. And Ms. Silverman already mentioned these two lists, so I won't go over what the lists are, but these are projects that have been submitted, and in the case of the true unfunded list, fully processed by the Office of Public School Construction. You can see the new construction state share, modernization state share there on the left side, and then the acknowledged list. These projects, again, they are submitted to OPSC by the school districts, but they are not processed, only reviewed for completeness. And you can see the new construction and modernization estimated state shares on both of those. So in summary, on the last page, if you add the new construction projection, modernization projection, and the two pipelines, you get a total and current projected need of about $9.18 billion. And I need to make sure you understand this does not include our need for charter school facilities or any other special programs, career tech, joint use, overcrowding relief. And it's also a kind of compilation because it's got a 10-year new construction projection, a shorter-term modernization projection, and a more immediate pipeline need that's already been submitted to the state. And so it's kind of a mix, but that's the reality of what our need is in California and what we can determine just based on the data that we have here from the state at this time. And I would be happy to answer any of your questions. Thank you very much.